The Darfur atrocity was not an outbreak of spontaneous violence, but a meticulously orchestrated state-sponsored campaign of ethnic cleansing. The escalation of conflict in Sudan's western Darfur region in 2003 stemmed from long-standing standing grievances voiced by local rebel groups, such as the Sudan Liberation Army (SLA) and the Justice Equality Movement (JEM). These groups alleged systematic discrimination by the Sudanese government against non-Arab ethnic groups, including the Masalt, Fur, and Zaghawa people. In response, the Sudanese government launched a brutal campaign that deliberately targeted the foundations of these communities. Backed by the state Janjaweed militias, who were equipped with weapons, uniforms, and air support, initiating a systematic assault on villages. These militias carried out coordinated attacks marked by bombings, arson, mass killings, destruction, rape, and destruction of food, water, and supplies. This violence was not only physical, but torture and public executions were also used to dismantle the social fabric of the targeted groups. Over 2 million people were displaced, entire populations driven from their homes into refugee camps, often across borders. This period between 2003 and 2005 marked the most violent organized phase of the Darfur crisis and was ultimately when it was recognized as a genocide. What makes the Darfur genocide especially distinct is the methodical nature in which it was carried out. Unlike more chaotic or spontaneous acts of massive violence, Darfur's genocide followed a clear chain of command. It was institutionalized through government policy and military coordination. The attacks unfolded in indefinable stages: classification of ethnic groups as threats, preparation through arming militias, exterminations via killings, and displacements of ongoing denial by state actors. This campaign fits the definition of genocide under the UN Convention, which describes such acts as those committed with intent to destroy in whole or in part a national, ethnic, racial, or religious group. In Darfur, the intent and execution were unmistakably deliberate, an effort to erase specific non Arab populations. The Darfur genocide was a state directed, racially motivated campaign of violence, marked by its deliberate structure and clear intent. The short term impacts of Darfur between 2003 and 2005 were catastrophic, both in human cost and societal breakdown, meeting multiple criteria of the 1948 Genocide Convention, especially Articles 1, 2, A, B, and C, which define genocide as the intent to eradicate in whole or in part a national, ethnic, racial, or religious group. The Sudanese government and Janjaweed militias executed the coordinated attacks, which passed through the critical phases of genocide. All of these all of these attacks evidently lead to the short-term impacts, displacing over 2.5 million people and killing more than 30,000, being clear social impacts. The violence also dis- destabilized the broader region, especially Chad, creating severe social and economic uncertainty. These scorched earth tactics deliberately created unlivable conditions aligning with Article 2C, deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring out this physical destruction. Entire communities lost access to food, water, and shelter, making survival impossible for many. As survivor Howard Muhammad shared, we ran from the fire, from the bullets, from our burning homes. I don't know how he survived. Dehumanization of such inevitably leads to the instant psychological torment having been targeted and recognized through coordinated ethnic cleansing, which exponentially increased the severity in which a victim may have PTSD. Source: Darfur Women Action Group. Widespread sexual violence was a defining feature of the Darfur genocide. As quoted in Sons Montanus, he documented hundreds of rape cases, pointing to clear patterns of military and militia involvement. Politically, the Sudanese government's denial and refusal to cooperate with international bodies representing the final denial stage of the genocide, despite mounting evidence international intervention was delayed until 2005. In summary, the short term impacts of the genocide were not just isolated acts of violence, but a part of a deliberate and coordinated state policy. The long term consequences of the Darfur genocide remain severe and ongoing, marked by widespread displacement, psychological trauma, and limited political accountability. According to the Durable Solutions Working Group, Sudan, a large portion of the 2.5 million people displaced during the genocide still live in camps in neighboring countries. These camps, intended as temporary shelters, now represent prolonged suffering, insecurity, and stalled recovery, with minimal access to healthcare, education, or employment. Survivor testimonies highlight the enduring trauma. Once displaced individuals stated, "We are still here 20 years later. We've been forgotten, our lives stolen." This reflects the deep psychological scars left by the violence. Studies reported higher levels of PTSD, depression, and anxiety among survivors, weakening communities' cohesion and hindering long term recovery. Source: Human Rights Watch. The World Bank also notes that conflicted areas like Darfur rank among the lowest in Sudan's development indicators, with over 80% internally displaced persons still living in poverty. Politically, the genocide led to charges under Article 3 of the Genocide Convention under senior Sudanese officials, yet accountability remains elusive. Former President Omar al Bashir evaded arrest for years despite international warrants. This failure reflects the final stage of genocide as defined by Gregory Stanton. Denial is the 10th stage that always follows genocide. By refusing to fully acknowledge the genocide, the state blocks reform and prevents justice. These consequences underscore the far reaching human, social, and political cost of the Darfur genocide, how it was a state sponsored campaign with devastating short and long term effects, and how today its legacy persists through trauma, displacement, and denial, although still ongoing. Without justice and sustained support, these wounds will remain open, an enduring reminder of the urgent need for accountability and reform.